Q&A. We'll see how my brain goes today, given how much it's struggling for words at this stage. Maybe I'll warm up. Hopefully I'll warm up. Please say hello in the chat if you haven't already. Good to see who's here already. And I guess we will just see how we go today. So we just had a bit of a social catch up online, a Zoom thing with some of our Patreon community, which was really nice. And I was just sharing that today is not the best day. Maybe you know what this is like, one of these just everything is too much type of days. So we will see how this live stream goes. I might perk up, you never know. Good to see some familiar, what's not faces, not names, what's the word? Taglines? No. Aliases? No. You know what I mean. What's the word for this metal dilly you use to dig food? No, for the name. Come on. For the name that you screen name. Welcome everyone to today. This is going to be either fun or an absolute disaster. So we'll see how we go. Regulars, that's a good word, Alan. Thanks for that. You know how I did a summit about a month ago? And my plan was, great, as soon as that's finished, I'll maybe have like a week off or something to wind down. Username, Pia, thanks. That's kind of what I was going for. Handle, yeah, handle, that makes sense. I was thinking maybe I'll take a week off, recover, not have anything to do. And then with the free time that I've got, not organizing this massive event anymore, I would finally get to picking up the book writing again, which I was hoping to get finished by the end of this year. But instead, I've essentially taken over a month it's been over a month since the end of the summit. And I'm still feel like I'm recovering. And I think as we were chatting about one of the, come on, monkey brain, one of the factors with that is that it's really difficult with a weekly YouTube schedule, commitment, something like that, cycle, with a weekly YouTube cycle to wind down to zero. So it's entirely possible to cut back on a lot of things, but it is extremely difficult to not check in online every couple of days at least. So something tells me that, yeah, I mean, I know we're not that far from the end of the year. I don't want to scare anybody. Haha, scare, get it? Because it's Halloween today, in Australia at least. StreamYard wanted me to use all of these new Halloween pack with backgrounds and overlays. And I'm like, yeah, maybe not. And now you're probably saying, no, it's fun, do it. I don't want to scare any of you, but there's not that many weeks before Christmas, which my brain can't really compute because I thought it was January, and it's not January anymore. So what was I saying? What was I saying? Yes, trying to figure out when I can next take a break. I'm going to a conference in Perth in a couple of weeks, so that'll be fun. The Asia Pacific Autism Conference. I haven't been since 2018. Or was it 2019? 18? 19? I think it was 18. And then COVID hit and it hasn't been since. So that'll be fun. Hopefully that will actually be a brain break from the internet, at least, which you might not realize this because I run a YouTube channel, but I don't like social media at all. And if there were a way that I could manage in life without having to use my phone, then I would opt for that option. But that is exceedingly difficult. It is exceedingly difficult not to go online when you run an online business. If you figure out how to do that, let me know. But I haven't. Sorry, this is too good not to share. Thanks for that, Helena. In other news, so this is supposed to be a Q&A. So if you have a question that you would like me to address, please put it in there in the comments and I'll see it. In other news, I have a new strategy, potentially, to deal with this ongoing problem of distraction of my attention, scattering of my attention, leading to feeling scattered all the time, which is, I think I need some kind of business partner, for lack of a better word, so that I can focus literally 100% on the content delivery side, which is writing my book, doing life coaching, creating resources, running like actual workshops. We've got a workshop coming up on unmasking. If you haven't already seen that, check out the Autism from the Inside website. That's right. So that's a 3-hour online workshop, and it's really powerful because there's this back and forth, and I can be focused and present during those times. The challenge is that to run a business of any sort you got to do lots of different things. And as soon as I take my brain away from the idea generation, content delivery, connecting with individual people kind of focus of that, it just takes such a huge amount of transition time. I'm talking days and days worth of transition time. I went to continue my book writing the other day, and I spent an entire day just getting my head in the game for where am I up to, what am I doing, just getting all the gears in the right order. And then by the end of the day, I was tired, and then the next day I had to do something else. So that sharing some excitement for the unmasking workshop. Basically next week. It's either Monday or Sunday, depending on your time zone. Like not this weekend, the next one. So yeah, literally days to get my brain in the right order. And then if I get interrupted, just like I did last week, then I've spent a whole day getting my brain into the right gear, getting almost no work done, And then I have to shift gears again to ask a completely different question, Anyway, so that's a new idea. How amazing would that be if I had a partner or an agent or a comms lead or something that could just handle all of the internet, social media, promotion, communication stuff, so that I could do the thing and didn't have to worry about also telling people that I've done the thing. Anyway. Multi-train derailment. Woo. Yep, something like that. So, yeah, it's an idea I've had for a while, but the challenge is that there's no direct way to get that done. Like if you want to hire a video editor, there's ways to do that. But if you want to find a partner who's 100% committed to your vision and also a perfect complementary skills match, like how do I even do that? So what I'm doing is I'm starting to ask the universe. I've let some people know. I'm slowly telling more and more people, you're hearing about it today because you're on this session live. I have no idea what it's going to look like or what. I'm very confident that if I met the right person, I would know exactly what kind of help I need. It's been really nice recently, like personally really nice, to hear the encouragement from our Patreon community, people saying things like, what can we do? How can we support you? Those types of things. That's really motivating and heartwarming and all that kind of stuff. And I wish I had an answer to that. I wish I could say, yes, there's this thing you can do. So instead, I'm talking to myself. I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking sort of at myself, to you, talking at you all. There we go. That captures the unidirectional nature of this. Talking at you all at the moment. Am I Maltese? My name is Maltese, but that is about it. My family with the Maltese name actually emigrated from Tunisia, so they hadn't been in Malta for some time. Fun fact. Spider Plant is listening. Oh yeah. Some of you might know what this means. I shared a Spider Plant update recently on Patreon. So yes, little Spidey is always here. That's really interesting. I've spoken to a couple of people recently who are serving this section of our community, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Maybe I'll do a video on. I get so many ideas for videos, but actually turning them, having the time to sit with one of the ideas for long enough to turn it into an actual video. Anyway, the idea was essentially sharing my personal tips and or journey and or like top things that I've learned from taking that step and trying to do things for myself rather than working for someone else, because that's a really big decision in terms of like which path. The entire working for someone else path just looks completely different to the entire doing your own thing path. So yeah, anyway. And I really appreciate offers of support, or at least what's the word? There is a really good word. In principle, offers of support. No, that's not quite what I'm saying. I was like, I would love to be able to, but so a lot of us in the community don't have that much capacity either. So that's something that we are always battling. Haven't had too many questions in the chat at the moment, which means I'm going to answer most of these. Do you like cheese? Is this a yes/no question? If it is a yes/no question, and I had to pick a yes/no answer that would be as accurate as possible. Ooh, hang on. Okay. Remind me to come back to that thought. Okay. If this is a yes/no question, I would have to go with no, I do not like cheese. The reason is because if I said yes, I do like cheese, you would imagine that I would get excited about like a cheese board, or eating cheese by itself, or trying different types of fancy cheese. And the answer to all of those questions is no, absolutely not interested in any of those things. I would almost never eat cheese by itself because I just not interested. The thought, thanks for reminding me, the thought that I had that nearly derailed me from this question was that answers have a level of complexity to them. So do you like cheese? Yes or no, right? Do you like yogurt? Yes or no, right? However, the simpler the answer, the less accurate it is. And sometimes answering truthfully and simply is actually less truthful. No, that's not quite the right word. Less creates more confusion, which is why I try and explain, right? Shout out to all the over-explainers, because I would say, yes, I like cheese, but this, but no, but you know. Do I like yogurt? Sort of, maybe. And it's not something that I am particularly fascinated with. This one's a fun one. I'm definitely right-handed, but I'm significantly more ambidextrous than most of the population. Significantly more. To the point that it makes it hard for me to understand other people's behavior because I don't get it. So yeah, I play table tennis with my left hand just for fun. And so because I started doing that just for fun, I'm actually pretty good with both hands. What I really love to do, but unfortunately no one likes playing me like this because they feel like I'm showing off, but I'm not showing off. I'm just having fun. I like to play doubles. You know how in table tennis you have to have one person and then the other person and then the other person in doubles. They have to sort of take turns. Well, I do the same thing, except I have to do right hand and then I have to do left hand. Anyway, I'm sure that's not the answer you were expecting. I tried playing the drums left-handed just for a challenge. I don't know if many of you know that I play the drums, but I got one of these like Guitar Hero type games that had a little drum kit, and it's pretty basic. The right-handed drums were okay, so I thought, oh well, let's try the left-handed drums. And anyway, whoa, yay for nuance. The reason that's on my mind is because this whole week I've been thinking about the question of how to explain autism to others, and it all comes back to which level of complexity you're going for. So don't know if you want me to explain more of that. Let's go down and see if I can pick out, if I can notice all the questions. What do you do aside from making videos? Well, professionally, aside from making videos, things like life coaching, webinars, online workshops, other social things, connecting with other autistic advocates and authors and things like that. I ran an event, those types of things. Outside all of that, not that much. Probably rock climbing would be the biggest thing that I do at the moment. It's a lot cheaper to get obsessed with one hobby at a time. That way you only need one membership, as opposed to, oh, I want a dance membership and a gym membership and a climbing membership and a, yeah, no. Autism and dyslexia. Is there a relationship? Cheese is good with olives. I would probably have olives just by themselves. I would eat cheese with crackers sometimes. So long as it doesn't taste too strong. Anyway, back on the cheese thing. There is definitely a relationship between autism and dyslexia. I don't know the statistics on how much they overlap compared to the rest of the population. I assume there might be, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. Dyslexia is a commonly referred to type of neurodiversity. Autism is also a type of neurodiversity. So in that sense, they're quite related, in that they could very easily overlap in terms of if your brain is different in this area and your brain is also different in this area, well, one of the things that characterizes autism is your brain has to be significantly different in several significant areas. If your brain is significantly different but only in one area, you might get a specific diagnosis like dyslexia. Whereas if you have that and also half a dozen other things, it's more likely that autism will be a better fit. Being able, I have no idea what this question means. Can someone help me out? Being able to lie without conscience. I have no idea what that question means. Sorry about that. Next question. Oh, another one from Jillian. What do you do when you're not making videos for a day? Okay, so like if I'm trying to take a day off, I've done a lot of walking in my time, so that is a nice, easy way to not do anything. The problem, though, is that I can only really walk for a couple of hours a day. I can't spend 12 hours walking. So then I've got all this other time, and then I'm probably at home by myself, just me and the internet, and then I'll probably look up something interesting, which is really not that great for a brain that's trying to take a break if I keep dumping it with more and more and more information. And the type of information that I like to deep dive into is pretty complex, right? It's complexity theory, and it's adult psychological development, and it's personal growth and emotional intelligence and psychology and all those kinds of things. So Okay. Simple answer is less accurate, thus less completely true. What is completely true? What does that even mean? We're getting very, very philosophical now. You could there are two. Am I really going here? Yeah, okay, fine. There are two main ways to answer the question, what is true? Because you could go smaller and smaller and smaller and say, well, the direct experience is true, like physical stuff is true. The more complex stuff is true. But what about, you could also go the other direction and find patterns in things and say the pattern is true because I observe the pattern. Anyway. Looking for another question. Shout out to anyone who sings to themselves while they're trying to think. Okay. Do I collect anything? Not anymore. I'm a what's the like addict term? I'm a recovering collector. Something like that. I used to collect a lot of things. I used to collect basically anything that was even remotely collectible. So stickers and stamps and badges and stuff, that's easy. I once thought it would be fun to collect my pencil sharpenings. And I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be amazing? Because normally you only get a tiny bit. Wouldn't it be amazing if you'd like had like 10 years worth of pencil sharpenings? It was less amazing than it might sound. If you're thinking it doesn't sound very amazing, it was even less amazing in real life. Auditory processing disorder is a trait which some autistic people have. Does it affect the ability to read as much as it does listening? No, I don't. If I am understanding the question correctly, no, that's a completely different thing. Yeah. I'd be curious if there was more to this, but on the surface, it seems like the question is about if I'm reading, does an auditory processing disorder affect that? I'm kind of the opposite because my visual stuff is it's just very hard for my visual systems, but my auditory systems are really, really good, which means audiobooks are easy. I don't even have to be paying attention and the information goes in. But reading is a completely different sensory processing system. So I imagine that just because you have auditory processing, it would be entirely plausible to be really good at reading and have that completely unaffected or completely affected in a different way. Can you explain you parents that you are late diagnosed autistic person? How can, there we go. What did I say about reading? How can you explain to your parents, I assume, that you're late diagnosed autistic person? Hey, mom and dad, or dad. Hey, parents. What's in the, if I were that comic with the aliens that made things into very literal things, what would I call my parents? Hey, DNA givers. I'm a late diagnosed autistic person. I just figured out I have autism. Thanks, bye. See you next decade. No. There's no perfect way. It really depends on your relationship. A good way that I've seen recently is to bring them along on the process. Instead of, hey, I found this, It's, hey, I've discovered something here that looks really interesting. I don't know what it means, but would you like to explore that with me? Can you help me explore that? I hear that in an autism diagnosis process, they ask the parents what I was like as a child. So if I find something that is interesting, that might be autistic behavior, can I have a chat about what I was like when I was younger? And that way you're actually bringing them along in the process rather than here's the answer that I've already come up with. You have to accept it because I know it's true. They don't know it's true yet. And they probably have a journey of figuring that out. As someone with autism, do you love or hate Halloween? That sounds like a really good question for the comments. I'm pretty ambivalent, as you can see by me completely ignoring the, how would you like some Halloween themed? No. I did dress up as Gumby once, went at a Halloween party in the US. That was fun. I think I wrote one of my very, very, very old videos on body language. If you want to look it up, I think it's still up there. And I tell my Gumby story. That was fun. Let me see if I can understand this question. Would it benefit a person to get diagnosed rather than just coasting through life not getting diagnosed? My opinion is that the biggest benefit is your own personal growth. How you see yourself, how you understand yourself, how you heal from all of the cuts and bruises that you've accumulated over your life and not known why. Cuts and bruises is an understatement. Sometimes people call it shared trauma. But yeah, so diagnosis can be a part of that, but ultimately it's all about your process and what it means for you. You don't need an official diagnosis to get all those benefits. And at the same time, for a lot of people, getting an official diagnosis is really helpful. So, okay, is this a question for me? Recently got a new microphone. I'm worrying if it's the right one. Do you have any tips for dealing with that kind of anxiety or second guessing? Yes, don't just tell yourself, bad luck, I have to live with it. This is actually a very explicit strategy that I use. In my case, very often it's forgetting things. Like I'll leave the house and I've forgotten my sunglasses, or I'll be, one street down the road and I'll think, oh, but what if I should have brought this with me instead? Trying to be over prepared for everything. And what I've learned is just bad luck. Learn from it next time. Don't fix it this time. This was also a very big learning curve for me with creating YouTube videos, because I'd be editing and the temptation would be, oh, I could do that so much better. Bad luck. You didn't. So submit this one and then do better next time. So in the case of maybe I bought the wrong thing, then bad luck. What I'm going to do, how I'm going to make sure that I learn this lesson is that I'm going to suffer the annoyance of, I bought the wrong type of bread recently, and I'm like, I am going to eat that whole loaf to remind myself to double check the label so I don't do it again. So that, anyway, I don't know if that makes sense. That's kind of my mindset, because it happens all the time. There is no perfect. So deliberately feeling the pain and discomfort of a less than ideal decision trains our emotional brain. Get it? Because I'm writing a book on how to train your emotional brain to effortlessly learn for next time. If I go away for the weekend and I forget my phone charger, well, I'm not going to forget it next time because it was really annoying, or I'm less likely to forget it next time. Oh yeah, recovering hoarder, maybe? That's probably more than collector. Still living in yesterday. That's fine. You are forgiven. I'll blame your time zone. The problem is I can't read questions before posting them to the screen, or at least I could, but then you wouldn't know what I'm doing. Maybe that wasn't a question for me. Okay. Is that me? That's probably supposed to be me. Do you watch any philosophy YouTubers? Define philosophy. Not really. Define philosophy. I'm really interested in not philosophy as such, but belief and meaning. I watched a really great YouTube series recently. And I say series because it's actually a book that he turned into a series on the evolution of meaning that goes through thermodynamically, like from first principles thermodynamics. What does it mean to mean something from an evolutionary point of view? Very interesting, by Brendan Graham Dempsey. So is it philosophy? Not really. Like it involves thinking and beliefs and like myths and religions and all of that kind of stuff and culture, but it feels like so much more than philosophy. Maybe I just don't like the word philosophy. I hope this is interesting. I'm just trying to scan for questions that are directed at me. Mm-hmm. Okay, this looks like a question for me. Do you think that there's any truth to the idea that being innovators, autistic people carry civilization forward with neurotypical people along for the ride? Never being grateful. Any truth? Yes. Short answer, yes. Big answer, no, not at all. That's not how innovation works. Imagine if the whole world were innovators. We'd constantly be creating new things, and no one would turn the thing that we've created into something that the whole of society can use. So in one sense, yes, thinking differently is really powerful. Bucking the trend of culture is really powerful, but only in small doses. I actually like a Christian analogy of being salt, right? Every good food has salt in it. Like without it, it would be completely bland. But you don't want to eat just salt, right? You want to spice up life, or spices are another kind of example, right? You wouldn't eat just chilies or just turmeric or just cardamom, right? But you put them in cooking and it makes the cooking amazing. So is there any truth to the idea that we're innovators? Yes, definitely. I think that's pretty obvious. Are those innovations carrying civilization forward? I don't know about carrying, but we're definitely growing civilization forward. We are preventing civilization from stagnation. That's for sure. Are neurotypical people along for the ride? Yes, because we're all in the same boat. So of course we're along for the ride. Are they grateful? Probably not. They probably don't realize. We probably don't realize. Yeah, we don't always. A lot of us are not that grateful for things, because if you think about it from a civilization perspective, I inherited almost like 99.9% of everything. How many of the roads in my city were already built before I was born? How much of the science and technology that the human race has created had already been discovered before I was born? Like, it's not even me personally, it's my whole generation. I went on a mini retreat at a monastery a couple of weeks ago, and it was set up, I don't know, 150 years ago, which is quite a lot for Australia. And I'm thinking, the current people living here didn't have to build it because their ancestors built it, for lack of a better word. So are we grateful for that? Probably not. Probably very easy to forget. I would not have expected this question. Do you know where Romania is? I'm often watching your videos from, hang on, am I reading that right? Romania. Yes. Yes, I know where Romania is. I have not been to Romania. I once hosted a Transylvanian couch surfer, so that was fun. But I have not personally been there. But yes, I know vaguely where it is. Having visited several countries around it. Okay, is this a question for me? Hey, parent units. Yeah, remember how I always struggled with these things? Turns out it's my brain. Brilliant. Are you good with math? Depends what you mean. When people ask me this question, the first thing I ask is, what do you think maths is? Because there are three things you could mean here. One is, are you good with numbers and counting? The answer is no, very bad. Are you good with basic computational maths? And I would say yes. I studied engineering. I work with equations really well. There's another level of math which is more like pure maths, and the answer is absolutely not. My brain, I am not that. I don't know if clever is the right word. Maybe it's a visual thinking thing. I haven't quite figured out what you need to be actually good at maths, like difficult maths. There are just so many levels. Like I mean, I did the hardest maths unit you could do at high school, and then I did 2 units of maths every year for 5 years in my engineering degree at university. And I would classify them as, maybe the bottom third of how difficult maths gets. So I can do like 3 out of 10. And then as soon as you start doing like a maths degree, like their first year subjects would probably be harder than my 5th year subjects. So very, very, very relative. Oh, thanks again, Eleanor. How would you classify the Trump versus Tylenol issue? Classify. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Given that people say that misophonia primarily affects women, and people used to think that only boys and men could have ASD, do you think that misophonia has different symptoms in men than women? What do I classify? How would I classify? Okay, let's try and just go wherever my brain goes. I would classify the Trump versus Tylenol thing as a cultural phenomenon. It's got nothing to do with science. It's got nothing to do with autism. It almost has nothing to do with politics, except that it's playing out in a political arena and people are politics is always based on the culture because you're trying to get the power of the people. So it's always based on culture. So yeah, that's how I would classify it. It's a cultural instantiation of the political climate that we're in, or maybe vice versa. It's a very specific political instantiation representing the current cultural climate that we're in, not just in the US as well. There's a lot of overlap in other and in some other countries. It really does depend. And then the other one on misophonia, I can't even say it. I would expect, this is based on no information, I would expect that because almost everything in society is highly influenced by gender, I would expect that expressions would be different. And so I would expect it to look different. I don't know if that's a very satisfactory answer. Is your memory good with general knowledge? No. Next, no. There's two reasons why I'm not good at general knowledge. One, I'm not good at trivia because I find it trivial. And I'm like, why would I bother spending my brain power remembering, who won an Oscar in, 1989 or something. And the other thing is I've got a pattern recognition brain. It does not recognize the detail, right? I could explain how quantum physics works, but I couldn't tell you the name of the guy who wrote it, or like I could explain a whole book and I'll forget the author, or I could explain a whole concept, but I'll explain all of the history, for example, and I'll have a very high level understanding of the history and of the patterns and of how it worked. But if you ask me what year is that, I don't know. I'd probably get it roughly right, but there's no sense saying 60 something. It's just that doesn't win you quiz shows. What is the square root of -1 on the y-axis? The square root. Oh, kidding. Oh, okay. Okay. Fun story. I used to teach, be like a math tutor, and I had a 10-year-old math student who said, "What's the square root of the square root of -1?" And that was actually a really interesting question. Go home and do it if you haven't done it. There are two ways to do it. You could either use sort of a real component and a complex component, or you could use the polar method. That also works quite well. On the y-axis, usually the y-axis is the imaginary axis. So I would say the square root of -1 on the y-axis is 1 on the y-axis, right? I mean, is there any other way to interpret that question other than it was a joke, which I probably should have just taken that? If you understood anything of what I said in the last minute, let me know, because I imagine a lot of people didn't. How do you relax or de-stress? I need music really helps a lot. Really repetitive music like chants and other things help a lot, because it just gets my brain into a slower rhythm. So yeah, that and walking and just I need to distract myself long enough to not keep pouring in more and more and more information. Okay. How are we going for time? How are we going for comments? I have no idea where I'm at. It just keeps scrolling down. So do you love, hate, or are ambivalent to your high school years? Everything turned around for me when I was 16. So for me personally, 16 through 23 were by far the most enjoyable years of my entire life. But that had very little to do with school. So yeah, most of school was not fun. But that turning point with the dreadlocks, and some of you know that story, yeah, was a big thing. PTSD is a form of neurodiversity. I would assume all trauma should be. I've never heard PTSD be described as a form of neurodiversity, so that's one thing. I personally think that trauma is natural, is expected, is like it is how our bodies and brains and emotions and sense of self protect themselves. So there's a lot of normal behavior with that. And I think if we as a society understood trauma better, we could more easily isolate what autism is. But unfortunately, one of the reasons there's a massive overlap is because a lot of autistic people have been traumatized in lots of situations and carry around a lot of unhealed trauma from that. And so am I acting this way because of my autism, or am I acting this way because of my autism and all of the burdens and hurts that I'm carrying around? So yeah. Have you ever heard of animals like cats being neurodiverse? Because mum has 2 cats that seem to have ASD. Really depends on your definition. I haven't thought down those lines myself personally. One of my biggest annoying factors is that sometimes autism research is done on mice, and they have anyway. I think Samantha Stein, Yosemite Sam, did a video explaining this from a more technical perspective. I don't know the details of it, but I have serious doubts about what they call autism in mice having much, if any, helpful correlation to human beings for various reasons. Probably because even among experts, autism is not that well understood. So I'm guessing a grad student doing a PhD on mice probably is not going to have the best understanding, the best social understanding of what they're doing, even if they perfectly understand the medical side of what they're doing. Do you think autism traits can become more noticeable or less noticeable with age? Yes, definitely, 100%. Lots and lots of people have experienced this and tell me about this. Another way to think of it is that in different situations, traits will be different. So when you go through different life stages, what is required of you in those life stages will be radically different. Kids typically don't need to work 9 to 5, for example. And school is very different to work, for example. Social expectations change a lot as well, especially for young girls. Once they hit those teenage years, everything was going really well, and then suddenly autism is a much bigger factor in that developmental period. So later in life as well, yeah, it short answer, yes, it can change quite a bit. Okay, how's my headache going? How's the time going? I think I should probably try and wrap up soon-ish, but I'll look for a couple more questions. Do you know autistic people with global hypersensitivity? Global. I know quite a number of autistic people that have quite a significant degree of hypersensitivity across multiple senses. Is it global? Is it literally every sense? I'm not sure. It does seem anecdotally that quite a number of autistic people seem to just have all their senses dialed up. Why do you think there are a high percentage of autistic people? Probably because we're more likely to try something different, and we're more likely to not have a group, and we're more likely to find the other weirdos, for lack of a better word. So, like, let's take gender expression as an example. If you are doing everything differently to your peers, what are the chances that you will also do gender differently to your peers? Right? So that's my guess. Yeah, something like that. Will it bother you? Will it bother you to be an employer? Will you feel too spread out? I assume this is in relation to my comments at the beginning of the video about needing to find help in a complementary skill set kind of way, so that I can not be so scattered with my attention, which maybe some of you can relate to this. It feels like it's killing me to constantly be doing so many things. I really just need to focus on one thing at a time and do that one thing exceedingly well. So I don't really want to be an employer because that would mean managing people. I already work with, a small team of contractors, for example. So what I'm hoping for is to find someone who's more like a partner who can help me with the managing side of things. I've had lots and lots of offers from like consultants to come in and tell me how things can be better, and for contractors to come in and like do some work and take some stuff off my plate. But it doesn't really work like that. As anyone who's worked in a team, like in my engineering office, knows, like, if you've got 4 people working on a project and you need help, having an extra person, you can't just add 4 more people to that project and expect it to go twice as quickly. It has a huge amount of training to get up to speed on the project. And what you end up doing by bringing on more people is transitioning, especially as a solo business owner, you end up transitioning from doing the work yourself to managing the people who do the work. But it doesn't necessarily reduce the workload. It just shifts the workload away from doing it directly to doing it indirectly. And sometimes doing work indirectly is a lot more tiring and difficult than just doing it directly, which is why a lot of solopreneurs end up just doing everything by themselves, because it's actually just easier, especially in the short term. So I will have to go soon, I think. As I mentioned at the start of the video, I don't know if some of you have probably just joined after the first 5 minutes of the video, but today's not a good day. Every time I try and sit down to do something, I get an existential crisis of, but why am I even doing it in the first place? So, I'll sit down to do a YouTube video, but I really need to rest instead of doing this YouTube video. Or, but why am I even bothering to do this YouTube video? I should be focusing on something else, or I should be finishing my book, or I should be. So I'm looking to somehow outsource that executive function stuff, because when I was working for someone as an engineer, the manager, or at least someone, would decide, this is the work we're doing, this is what we need to do, and then someone else would do it. And those two thinking processes are radically different. And so if I'm trying to do both of those things, I have to spend 3 days getting my brain into the what work needs to be done mindset, and then 3 days transitioning to the, okay, now let's do the work mindset. So, and by the time I've done that, that's 6 days of the week that I've spent transitioning. And yeah. Thanks, Jess. I like to think that trying to show up is helpful. Yeah. And my words did warm up a little bit, so I'm glad to see that. Okay. Quick note on daylight savings. Some of you are moving to daylight savings very soon, or moving off it very soon, which means double check times if that's the case for you. I should head off, I think. If you haven't seen the unmasking workshop that I'm running just in a bit over a week, check that out on the Autism from the Inside website. If you have any thoughts on how I can go about finding a complementary skill set so that I can focus on what I'm actually good at, send me an email. That'll be interesting. Otherwise, I guess we'll just keep going one day at a time. Enjoy your Halloween for anyone who celebrates that, which will be tomorrow for most of you who celebrate that. And I will see you next time. Okay, bye. Come on.